I went to Europe to work on my spaghetti western, but before I left, I had taken on a small yet memorable job that would later play an unexpected role in my career. It was a series of commercials for Nestle's Quick, a popular chocolate milk drink at the time. In these ads, I played a humorous parody of the famous British secret agent James Bond. My character was called Captain Quick, and the whole thing was done in a tongue-in-cheek style. I wore the suave suit, struck dramatic poses, and delivered lines with an exaggerated seriousness that made the absurdity even funnier. It was just meant to sell chocolate drink powder, but in a strange twist of fate, those short commercials would later help open the door to one of the most iconic roles of my life. 2 years later, in 1967, Adam West would put on his Batman costume for what would be the very last time in a secret project filmed far from the bright studio lights of Hollywood. This wasn't an episode for American television or a public appearance for fans. It was something completely different, something almost no one knew existed. He filmed this special scene in London, and for more than half a century afterward, the footage vanished without a trace. No one, not even the most passionate Batman collectors, historians, or memorabilia hunters, had any idea it was out there. It was locked away somewhere deep inside British television archives, untouched, unmentioned, and slowly fading from memory. Then, over 50 years later, in 2018, someone stumbled across it by accident while searching for unrelated lost TV history. That forgotten reel of film was carefully restored, and when it finally surfaced, it caused a sensation. People who saw it were stunned not just because it was a missing piece of Batman history, but because of what Adam West said in that mysterious scene. His words surprised fans and sparked conversations all over again, proving that even the most well-known superheroes could have hidden corners in their past, corners where strange and unexpected stories lived. The history of how Batman even reached that point, how the character jumped from the colorful pages of comic books to the screens of millions of television sets, goes back to 1964. That was the year Ed Graham Productions obtained the rights to develop a Batman TV series. The initial concept was nothing like the campy, pop art explosion the world would later see. Instead, it was meant to be straightforward and serious, modeled after the adventures of Superman, a black-and-white TV show from the 1950s that was aimed squarely at children. The early Batman plan was to make it a Saturday morning adventure show, with the caped crusader solving crimes, fighting villains, and delivering good moral lessons in half-hour episodes. For the role of Batman, the production had set its sights on Mike Henry, a tall, broad-shouldered NFL linebacker known for his athletic build and movie star looks. Henry would later become famous for playing Tarzan, but in 1964 he was seen as the perfect candidate for a more rugged, straight-faced Batman. Everything seemed to be falling into place, and by 1965 CBS, one of the biggest television networks in America, was deep in talks to secure the show. But for reasons still debated among TV historians, the deal started to drag. Weeks passed without an agreement, negotiations hit repeated roadblocks, and finally the network simply walked away. The plan collapsed just before cameras were set to roll. Mike Henry, already being considered for other roles, left to take on Tarzan instead. The world never got to see that more serious, action-focused Saturday morning Batman. Ironically, this failure, disappointing as it must have been for the people involved, left an empty space that would soon be filled in a completely different, and ultimately more successful, way. That same year, far from network boardrooms and studio sets, something happened at Hugh Hefner's Playboy Mansion in Chicago that would indirectly change the course of Batman's destiny. Hefner, always a fan of unusual entertainment events, decided to hold a private screening of the entire 15-chapter Batman serial from 1943. These serials, filmed in black and white during World War II, were once shown in movie theaters in weekly installments. By the mid-1960s, they were largely forgotten relics, remembered only by the most dedicated comic book enthusiasts. The screening was attended by celebrities, artists, and socialites, people with an eye for the retro and the ironic. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a nostalgic get-together, but as the reels played, the mood shifted. The audience didn't sit quietly, politely watching. They interacted with the film, calling out jokes, booing the villains, and cheering during the action scenes. They laughed at the low-budget effects, the melodramatic acting, and the exaggerated fight sequences. The New York Times and other newspapers reported on these unusual parties, describing the raucous, almost theatrical atmosphere. Without realizing it, Hefner had reintroduced Batman to the public not as a serious, gritty hero, but as a campy, over-the-top character whose very absurdity made him entertaining. Suddenly, Batman was cool again, in a completely unexpected way. Sensing an opportunity, Columbia Pictures quickly recut the entire 1943 serial into a single, massive 4.5-hour film, giving it the playful title An Evening with Batman and Robin. They premiered it at the Playboy Theater in Chicago, and the reaction was explosive. Art house cinemas, college towns, and midnight movie houses began booking it, and wherever it played, it sold out. Lines formed around the block. Fans showed up in costumes. Concession stands reported record-breaking sales. Some theaters even split it into two-day events, showing the first 7 chapters on Saturday and the remaining 8 on Sunday. This unexpected craze caught the attention of ABC executives, who had previously been lukewarm about Batman. The box office numbers told them something undeniable: Batman could still attract big audiences. If this much enthusiasm could be generated for old, grainy black and white footage, what could happen with a slick, colorful, modern television series? One of the loudest voices in ABC's halls belonged to a young executive named Yale Udolph. Udolph had loved Batman since childhood and had been pushing for a new TV version for months, even before the Hefner screenings. When he saw the public's reaction in Chicago, he became even more determined. He brought it up in meeting after meeting, at one point famously shouting, "We ought to do Batman," at his bosses. Most of them laughed it off, thinking he was overexcited about a silly comic book character. But Udolph refused to let the idea die. He wrote a full proposal for a show that would blend the sleek sophistication of James Bond with the playful gadgetry and espionage of the man from UNCLE. His passion started to rub off on others. Some executives even began reading Batman comics in secret, hiding them inside copies of the Wall Street Journal during cross-country flights so their colleagues wouldn't tease them. In the end, Udolph's persistence helped tip the balance, convincing the network to give the project a chance. When William Dozier was hired as the producer in 1966, he admitted something unusual for someone about to bring a superhero to life: he had never read a comic book before. Once he did, flipping through the pages of Batman issues from recent years, he was struck by how odd the stories were. Shark-repellent bat spray? Batman surfing against the Joker? To Dozier, the material was so outlandish that trying to treat it seriously would be a mistake. Instead, he decided the only way to make it work was to lean into the absurdity and turn it into a comedy, specifically, a campy parody. This was a bold move. America in the mid-1960s was already steeped in satire, from Andy Warhol's pop art to Roy Lichtenstein's comic-inspired paintings. Dozier's Batman would embrace this trend, becoming a television show unlike anything else: bright, exaggerated costumes, villains played like theatrical caricatures, and comic book sound effects like POW and BAM flashing on the screen during fight scenes. When Batman premiered in January 1966, this gamble paid off. The show became an instant cultural phenomenon. Not everyone was happy with Dozier's vision. The espionage novelist Eric Ambler had originally been hired to write a feature-length Batman movie to launch the series. But when he found out the direction was going to be comedic, he walked away from the project entirely. Ambler was known for serious, realistic thrillers, and he wanted nothing to do with parody. His departure was a sign of just how unusual Dozier's approach was. Hollywood almost never saw writers abandon major assignments over creative disagreements. Casting the show was another crucial moment. In 1965, 2 full screen tests were shot, one with Adam West as Batman alongside Burt Ward as Robin, and another with Lyle Waggoner as Batman and Peter Dale as Robin. Waggoner seemed like the safe choice: handsome, already somewhat known in Hollywood, and fitting the conventional image of a superhero. West, in contrast, was largely unknown. But when the 2 tests were compared, West and Ward had something special. They captured the odd, deadpan humor and heightened energy that Dozier wanted. The studio took the risk, casting the relative unknowns over the more established Waggoner. Waggoner went on to a successful career on The Carol Burnett Show and Wonder Woman, but West and Ward would forever be remembered as Batman and Robin. Adam West's path to the cape and cowl was unexpected. The producers had spotted him in that Nestle's Quick commercial, the one where he played the parody spy Captain Quick. His ability to deliver outlandish lines with complete seriousness convinced Dozier he was perfect for Batman. West signed his contract on September 21, 1965, beating out better-known actors simply because he could walk the fine line between serious and silly. Burt Ward was cast as Robin in 1966 at just 20 years old, though the character was meant to be a high school student. Ward's youthful face made audiences believe he was only 15 or 16. He also did most of his own stunts, which led to multiple injuries, 4 hospital visits in his first 5 days of filming alone. Behind West and Ward were veteran actors who grounded the show. Alan Napier, a British stage performer with a career dating back to the 1920s, played Alfred. Neil Hamilton, who portrayed Commissioner Gordon, had been a star since the silent film era. Their experience gave a sense of gravitas to the otherwise wild, colourful series. Yet even as Batman became a massive hit, a shadow from the past hung over it. In 1954, psychiatrist Dr. Frederick Wortham published Seduction of the Innocent, a book that accused comic books of corrupting children. Among his most controversial claims was that Batman comics promoted a homosexual fantasy, pointing to Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson's living arrangement and absence of women in their home. He suggested it was a wish dream of 2 men living together. These claims stuck in the public imagination for years, and by the time the 1960s TV show aired, the producers were still worried about the implications. In 1967, TV Radio Mirror magazine published an article called The Whisper Campaign Against Batman and Robin, which discussed the rumors openly for the first time. While the piece denied the claims, it slyly compared West and Ward to Liberace, the flamboyant pianist who had famously sued newspapers for implying he was gay. By bringing up Liberace, the magazine kept the whispers alive. ABC executives feared that such rumors could scare off sponsors and alienate family audiences. As a result, they made deliberate changes to the show, adding scenes where Batman expressed attraction to women, sometimes awkwardly, just to reassure viewers of his heterosexuality. Publicity campaigns also worked to present West and Ward as unmistakably masculine, both on and off screen. In the mid-1960s, Batman was more than just a television show, it was a cultural event that took over living rooms, magazines, newspapers, and the gossip columns. The actors who played its larger-than-life heroes suddenly found themselves under an intense spotlight. Every detail of their lives was inspected, polished, and presented to the public. Publicists and magazine writers created a constant stream of features showing them practicing karate, discussing their marriages, or posing proudly with their children. Even their exercise routines and hobbies were dressed up as proof of their strength and manliness. Behind the glossy photos, there was a sense of urgency, almost desperation, to keep up the show's image. In the 1960s, one damaging rumor could do more than hurt an actor's reputation, it could threaten the success of an entire television series. Networks, sponsors, and producers were extremely sensitive to anything that could make audiences turn away. Batman's team wasn't just selling a program, they were selling a wholesome, heroic image, and they knew it could shatter at any moment. At first, the show was unstoppable. When Batman premiered in January 1966, it exploded onto television screens in a way that few programs ever had. Viewers were dazzled by the colorful sets, the campy humor, the action sequences, and of course, the instantly recognizable BAM, POW, fight graphics. The series was an instant sensation. In February of that year, at the height of its popularity, Batman was being watched in 14 million homes, grabbing a massive 42% of the television audience. But the excitement proved to be fleeting. Just 1 month later, in March 1966, ratings began to slip. The Wednesday night episodes dropped so much that they barely managed to stay in the weekly top 20. Internal ABC memos admitted something no producer ever wants to see in writing: the novelty was wearing off. The network could already feel the formula starting to grow repetitive. The term Batman fatigue began making its way around studio offices and industry columns. By the summer of 1966, what had been a mild decline turned into a steep collapse. Just months earlier, Batman had been one of the hottest programs in the country. But on August 11th, The Associated Press reported that ratings had taken such a sharp fall that Batman no longer appeared anywhere on the list of top-rated shows. The only bright spot was merchandise, costumes, toys, lunchboxes, and anything with the Batman logo were still selling briskly. But television is not kept alive by merchandise alone, and the audience at home was slipping away. Networks always expected a small dip in the summer months, families spent more time outside, vacations pulled people away from their TVs, but this drop was far worse than anyone had anticipated. The craze that had influenced fashion, slang, and even advertising was fading before their eyes. That summer, the studio tried to reignite the flame by releasing a full-length Batman movie in theaters. They poured money into promotion, sending stars Adam West and Burt Ward on publicity tours and plastering posters across cities. Expectations were sky-high. Studio executives believed the movie would be a major box office hit that could breathe new life into the television show. The reality was a painful disappointment. The film earned only $1.7 million at the box office. In 20 major cities, it performed at 122% of a normal film's revenue, which would be considered decent, but the studio had counted on a number closer to 200% to declare it a real hit. Merchandise tied to the movie still sold well, but the film itself didn't turn a profit. For 20th Century Fox and ABC, this was a shock. They had banked on the movie to stretch Batman's lifespan, but instead, it signaled that the magic might truly be fading. When Batman returned for its second season in September 1966, the ratings told a grim story. The show's average ranking across all television programs had plummeted to 34th place, a far cry from its top 5 standing earlier in the year. Some episodes fell even further, sliding into the 40s in the rankings. In a scramble to win back viewers, producers introduced new villains, including the Archer and a fresh take on Catwoman. None of it worked. The numbers made it brutally clear, the initial spark had burned out, and everyone involved, including the cast, began to fear cancellation was inevitable. Then came one of the strangest chapters in Batman history, something no one in America even knew had happened. In May 1967, Adam West flew to London, donned his Batman costume, and filmed a short road safety message for British children. The clip was never aired in the United States, and for more than 50 years, it was considered lost. Even the most devoted Batman fans had no idea it existed. It wasn't until 2018 that the film reappeared, discovered by Kaleidoscope, an archive group dedicated to recovering the United Kingdom's top 100 missing television clips. When the public finally saw the footage, it was like finding a buried time capsule from two different cultures: American superhero entertainment meeting British public safety messaging. In the short film, Batman stands on a quiet British street, speaking directly to children about the dangers of crossing the road. He explains the curb drill, Britain's version of road safety rules. Calmly and with authority, he demonstrates: stop at the curb, look right, look left, look right again, and cross only when it's safe. Adam West stays completely in character, giving the simple lesson a sense of comic book importance. The rediscovered clip premiered publicly on April 14, 2018, at Birmingham City University. It kicked off Kaleidoscope's nationwide search for missing television treasures, including rare episodes of Doctor Who and the Avengers. Fans who attended the screening were astonished. Few could believe Batman had once starred in a forgotten British road safety film. But that wasn't the only piece of Batman history that had gone missing. In January 1967, singer Leslie Gore appeared in a 2-part episode as Pussycat, Catwoman's sidekick. She performed 2 songs in the storyline, California Nights and Maybe Now. While California Nights remained in every American broadcast, Maybe Now vanished from US reruns for reasons no one ever officially explained. Some international versions kept it, but most American cable airings cut the performance entirely. Over time, many viewers didn't even know the second song existed, making it one of the show's most puzzling little mysteries. There were other edits too. In one episode, Commissioner Gordon ends up in the Batcave and is knocked out with bat sleep spray so he'll forget Batman's secret identity. Some syndicated versions removed the gassing entirely, worrying about the optics of drugging a police commissioner even in a light-hearted, campy context. These changes showed that even harmless fun on a family show could bump into boundaries networks were unwilling to cross. Not all the strange Batman tales happened on camera. In the late 1960s, Adam West was banned from Aspen, Colorado, for 15 years after a notorious party got out of hand. West later admitted that the night involved liquor, yes. Women, yes. Police, yes. Rumors painted him as a Hollywood troublemaker, though no criminal charges were ever filed. Exactly 15 years later, he received an official letter from Aspen inviting him back. West and Burt Ward, who played Robin, also gained reputations as party-loving celebrities. Ward would later write in his autobiography that they were constantly approached by eager fans, sometimes while still in costume. He told stories of wild encounters, including one where he claimed he had to leap out of a motel window into the mud to escape an angry husband. West publicly downplayed or disputed many of Ward's more scandalous stories, but the gossip made network executives nervous. Batman had a family-friendly image, and too many rumors could damage it. Even the villains had their quirks. Cesar Romero, the Joker, famously refused to shave his mustache. Instead, the makeup team simply covered it with thick white paint. The faint outline was still visible in close-ups, and what began as a small personal choice became one of the most memorable traits of his version of the character. Behind the scenes, the cast lived fast. Parties often stretched into the early morning, leaving actors exhausted during filming. Makeup crews sometimes had to work overtime to make them camera-ready. In many ways, their off-screen lives were as over-the-top as the show itself. The Batman legacy also includes projects that never happened. In 1966, famed science fiction writer Harlan Ellison pitched an episode introducing Two-Face, a tragic villain who had never appeared in the series. His story, titled The Two-Way Crimes of Two-Face, kept the show's playful style but added a darker edge. At one point, Clint Eastwood was even discussed for the role. But Ellison's pitch arrived the same day a key ABC executive left the network. The timing and behind-the-scenes politics killed the project. It sat in Ellison's files for almost 50 years before DC adapted it into a 2014 comic called Batman 66, The Lost Episode. Then there was the Batboat, built for both the TV series and the 1966 movie. The sleek, gadget-filled craft looked fantastic on screen, but filming on water was expensive. It required extra crew, special equipment, and strict safety measures, often adding thousands to production costs. As a result, the Batboat appeared only a handful of times before being stored away, becoming almost mythical to fans. By the third season in 1968, ratings were in free fall. ABC cancelled Batman abruptly, but NBC expressed interest in picking it up for a fourth season. That hope died when it was revealed that the producers had already destroyed the sets, the Batcave, Wayne Manor, Commissioner Gordon's office, to save money on storage. Rebuilding them would have cost several $100,000, equivalent to over $2 million today. NBC dropped the idea, and what might have been a rescue became one of television's most expensive mistakes. For years, fans believed NBC had been close to reviving the show, but records suggest otherwise. The ratings were already at their lowest, the budget was bleeding money, and even the Batboat had been mostly retired. Beyond a brief inquiry, NBC never seriously pursued it. While Batman was still riding high, producers had explored several spin-offs, a solo Batgirl series, a Robin-centered show, even an early Justice League-style program featuring other DC heroes. Some reached the pitch stage, complete with concept art. But when Batman fell apart in Season 3 and the sets were destroyed, all spin-off plans were scrapped. Some were cancelled just days before casting was to begin. The dream of expanding the Batman universe was over. And so, Batman left television not with a triumphant ending, but with a slow fade, a pile of behind-the-scenes stories, and a legacy built on both its colorful episodes and the strange, often unbelievable history that surrounded them. The show's rise and fall remains one of the most fascinating chapters in pop culture history, proof that even the brightest television phenomenon can burn out faster than anyone expects.